You ready to go again?
I am. I'm excited for this one. This should be good.
Good, man. Me too. Looking forward to it. Over to you, my friend.
Perfect. So yeah, guys, what I'm going to go through today, everyone. So just following on for Owen, just a really quick introduction to me. So I joined Cognism 2016, as Owen said, second SDR. I've helped form and build the foundations for our DAC team, UK team, and US team. Stepped away for a bit, managed the UK, and now gone back to managing it globally. So there's a lot of stuff that went into getting us to this 50 million, but these are like the three pivotal things that I think had the most impact that actually got us to like 100% year-on-year growth. So yeah, if there's any questions that you guys have as well during, like, feel free to put it in the comments. But I've tried to make it as actionable as possible and take like real life examples of like data that we had like back in the day when we implemented the change, and then what the output is today. So the three things I'm going to cover today is like effective outbound sales, creating and building pathways within your sales team, and then also role segmentation. So first one I'm going to touch on is effective sales, effective outbound. So earlier this year, I came back to managing our DAC team. And usually when you get pulled back to manage a team, there's usually something fundamentally wrong, right? So state of play when we took over, this is kind of what it was looking at beginning of the year. So very, very, very low performance in the region. We had around 6 A's at the time. Sorry, we had like 4 A's at the time. This is the correct data. So 4 A's at the time. And you can see like the average attainment of the team was sitting at around 40%. Like fundamentally, there wasn't really that much wrong with the reps themselves, but that was a really, really like big issue in relation to how we were actually going to market. And you can see like the impact it was having on our organization. Like we were like really, really far behind, and it was really impacting our ability to achieve the targets that we set at the beginning of the year. So how do we turn it around? I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this concept in terms of spearfishing versus like net fishing, right? And the way that we structured DAC, we kind of gave, at the time, we gave it autonomy to the regions to decide how they wanted to go and like find accounts, go after accounts. And what we've done is we put a lot of onus at the time on the SDR function. So the SDRs were going out, trying to find good fit accounts themselves, rather than actually using the insight from like the leadership, from the revenue operations team to really dig in and find out like what is a good fit account and what should we actually be funneling through to our SDR function to increase conversion, increase ACV, and really get to attaining those targets. So what we've done is we really went back to basics. And like, I think the first thing you need to do when you, and even a good exercise to do today is like really go back and define what a good fit account is. And if you've got customers, you've got data to support this. And these are some of the things that we look for, right? So we look for high win rate, we look for high ACV, we look for high retention, high upsell potential. All of these things, we funnel, we try and find replicas of those customers and then funnel them through to our SDR function. So for us, yeah, so good fit customers for us in terms of comms, and this will vary company to company, right? But for us, it's like US HQ with like regional offices, use some particular tech. And the reason why this is the case is they have like very, very high net dollar retention. So when they renew, they actually renew at a higher clip than what they actually came on board with. And also as well, they have a higher ACV than like benchmarkers like marketing leads, because you can't control that really. But like our outbound leads, when they close, have a much, much higher ACV when we actually go in, segment the accounts and pick the right fit accounts. One thing I do see, like, and we sell to sales teams, right? So we get a lot of data in terms of companies that are doing 50% of this, but not doing 100% of this. And this is a little bit of a shameless plug for Cognism, that you can have that foundational like identification of what a good fit account is. But if you're not giving the sales team the actual contact data and like infrastructure that shows like who's in that organization, that's where a lot of organizations fall short. And there was one company that we're selling to at the moment, probably one of the biggest SaaS players. They've mastered that first part, but the second part in terms of providing the contact data to the team, they're really falling short, and they're not able to penetrate those accounts effectively and actually convert them into opportunities. So when you do this exercise, like, and look at what a good fit account is for you, make sure you've got the actual data to support the accounts that you give to the reps. So back to like the actual example, right? In terms of what was wrong and how we actually turned it around. So very, very small, guys. I know that, apologies for that, but you can see the accounts that we gave to the DAC team originally when they first started. So these were accounts that they were selecting themselves. 95% of them, and this is an exercise that me and the VP of Sales Development, David Bentham, done. We spent 3 days just going through every single account that they were targeting, and we graded them from 1 to 3 in terms of 1 being a great fit and 3 being a bad fit. And you can see here, when you give responsibility to the reps, there's a real big mismatch potentially to what they view a good fit account versus what a good fit account for the business is. So what we've done is we stripped them, and it was quite a dangerous thing to do because it did have an impact initially in the first month, but we pulled all them accounts out and replaced them with everything that we identified as a good fit account. What we then done is we then put accountability onto the managers. So we said, okay, AE manager, SDR manager, you have a KPI now of the pipeline that you generate has to be a good fit account. So we call these growth accounts. And we set a target that they have to be above like 90%. So any AE manager globally has to have 90% of the pipeline generated from that team being a good fit account. And we monitor this monthly in like a stand-up, like a general meeting across like the revenue team. And the benefit there is that like the managers are really on the reps to make sure that they are sticking to the accounts that we identify as good fit and not going after easy, quick wins. So what actually happened when we done this? So our average sales cycle is about 3 months. January, we came in, we stripped it, right? We pulled everything away. At the end of May, so it's roughly like a 3 to 4 month sales cycle, we saw a complete shift in the performance of the team. And this wasn't really to do with like training the reps or redefining like their approach in terms of how they sell. This was really foundational, like what accounts do we go in, what we actually bringing into the pipeline, what we closing. And yeah, we actually had like one of our record quarters since the region was started. And this was like the core reasons to why that came into place. So I suppose the key learning from this is just to make sure like when you are, and this, I think the next slide actually covers this like really, really nicely. I like numbers. And this is like a really, really good breakdown in terms of the impact that it can have when you actually funnel in the right account. So you can see if you can increase your ACV from outbound, like double, which is fundamentally what we've done, and you get the net dollar retention rate increase because they're much better fit accounts, you can just see the implication in future years in terms of how much revenue the organization brings in and retains. And that's really kind of that hockey stick growth that we see at Cognism. Like as soon as we shift to this model, and we've done this in the UK about 2 years ago, it really, really does just transform your growth and trajectory. So yeah, that's the first learning that I wanted to cover. Okay, the second one, this is kind of like our secret sauce, I would say, against like competition, is how we actually beat them. And one is product, but the second one is like the actual reps themselves. And I think a lot of organizations get so caught up in numbers that they don't understand that the people are the ones behind that number. So when you look at your AEs, if they've got a 30% close rate, that's down to the reps that you've got, right? If they leave, that number's going to drastically drop. So what we do at Cognism is we try and build these pathways for people and give people the ability to climb relatively quickly comparative to maybe what happens at other organizations. And you can see like the average tenure in sales, like industry, like when I pulled data was about 1 year and 6 months. Like in our team that we've got, like our main team, which is the revenue, it's like 3 years in terms of like the tenure that we have. And I think there's some really, really important like accolades that have come on the back of this, right? And we've broken records with reps, and these are 3 individuals. So we have a team of about 5 at the moment. We're hiring externally as well. So if you are interested to come on board, do hit me up after this. But these 3 individuals, right? You can see they haven't been in sales long, right? They started in 2018, 2020. These guys are now signing like multi-million-pound deals, and all of these came through our SDR function, and we built them up. And I think when you're looking, from my perspective, when you're looking for great sales reps don't want to leave the companies they're at if they're earning so much money. And that's like a really, really hard thing to do, to pull those people out to come join your organization. Whereas you can actually foster and build a really, really high performing team if you bring talent in at the SDR function, nurture them, train them, and give them the opportunities. So this is kind of like what I kind of covered there. This is kind of how we built it out at Cognism. So we have this document, we share it with absolutely every rep when they join the business. And we also give them like the criteria in terms of how they can actually progress. So micro progressions we give them within the role. So you can go to like a senior commercial, you can go to senior enterprise. And I think that's a really important aspect with like the demographic of people that are moving into sales today, and especially in Cognism, like they want quick wins. They want to celebrate that. They want to post that on LinkedIn, give them the opportunities to do that. But yeah, I think like for me, like and I'll go into this in a minute in terms of like the next area, which is around like role specificity. But at Cognism, we haven't had the best products like in 2018, 2019, like the product was pretty shoddy, and it's got a hell of a lot better now, like market leading. But at the time, like the key thing that differentiated us to the competition was like our sales process and the sales reps that we had in place. And I think, especially if you want to become like a thought leader in the space and really own your category, having those tenured reps that have been there 3-4 years, know all the use cases, know how to sell, like that's a really unique thing when you come up against like a fresh new rep that's just joined a competitor. And a lot of the bigger deals that we're signing, like they are reflective of the fact that the rep can guide the seller in terms of, this is a good use case for you that maybe a competitor or a new rep isn't able to explore, and they feel much more comfortable coming to us. So yeah, I think that's kind of the second one that we've done. More than happy to chat to anyone on this like later how we've actually done this. Okay, the third one. This one's really, really interesting in terms of the impact that it had. And I think the key thing I want to cover on this is that this really comes down to how you align the KPIs to each individual team and what KPI you put on that team. And it's very similar to sales, right? Like if you build a commission plan around something, everyone's going to gravitate to actually do that output. And what we've done, and I think the next slide covers this in a bit of detail, right? Like I was saying there, we didn't necessarily have the best product, right? You look at Cognism's growth. This was back in 2019. So we were having, nearly 45% of the accounts that we brought on in 2019 were churning. And that's when you need a really good sales machine, right, to counteract that. I know HubSpot had a very similar model when they started initially. It's just building that sales engine. Product naturally improves over time. But yeah, like it's, how do we actually change the needle on this and move to that net dollar retention? And firstly, it comes down to those accounts that you bring in. We didn't have that sophistication then in terms of like selecting the good fit accounts. And secondly, it comes down to actually creating specific roles within the organization that attach to a particular KPI. And when we've done this in 2019, you can see here, this is kind of the structure that we had. We had an account executive team, and then we had a CSM team, and that was exclusively it, right? We didn't have segmentation in terms of commercial, enterprise. We didn't have, that kind of breakup. And then the customer success function, this is probably one of the biggest changes that we've done. I've done a post on this on LinkedIn, and it really summarized it quite nicely, that customer success function and renewals need to be separated out. And if we look at like the role of a CSM, they're meant to be there to like get the customer up and running, make sure they're helping to achieve their goals. That commercial discussion needs to be placed with someone else. So what we've done is we really, really segmented and went back to basics, right? In terms of how do we actually break up the org. The AE team, the way that we've done it is we've broken it into 3 segments. We've got an automate, and this is any marketing lead that comes in. So we don't really have control over this, right? This could be we could classify this as a bad fit account based on our criteria, but we're still going to bring them in. They go into a specific team. Then we have our commercial team, which is all them growth accounts that I spoke about, the good fit accounts. And then our enterprise is one level beyond that, which is growth accounts with a headcount over a certain parameter. So all these different teams have a very different sales process. They have a very different requirement in terms of like the level of detail that they need to get as well. Automate is not going to be going into medic because it's just going to drown the customer. Whereas our enterprise team, the expectation is that they do that. Then we have our CSM team. Again, type of customer that we bring in is going to be very different, and their requirements can be different. The volume of people that they can actually manage as well is going to vary. And then we have our account management team, which is a combination of hunters, so like our AE team, and then people that are there just to retain the account, retain those high VIP customers that we bring on board. So this comes back to my point that I was talking about, like what do you actually put them on? Like what each team, what KPI are you actually aligning them to? So our account executive team is obviously done on new business revenue, right? Like net new accounts that we bring into the business. Our account management team is done on net dollar retention. Okay. And for anyone who doesn't know what net dollar retention is, it's what you have up for renewal plus any expansion on those accounts that you've got. Okay. So that really puts focus on the account managers to create new pipeline within your existing book of business, and also a focus on the renewal. Then our CSMs are solely focused on gross dollar retention, which is what's up for renewal. They're responsible for renewing that exact book again. So they're really focused on like the success of the customers, making sure that they're happy and that they're actually going to renew. AM much more focused on that. If they're happy, how can we grow that account? Okay. So this is kind of the impact, right? In terms of like when we do this shift, right, and we move everyone to a particular metric. So you can see here, like our gross dollar retention is just an upward trend, right? And I think whatever you align your CSM team to is going to have like a really natural increase over time, right? And you'll see here when I go through these, like the CSM one's a massive uptick. Our AE one, having the segmentation, is just like massively overperforming because they're so specialist at what they're selling into. And then our account management team, again, you've got like a massive upward lift in terms of net dollar retention. So to really kind of cover that, like that's kind of like something that I would advise you to look at is like, what KPIs have you assigned to these individual teams? Do you have the ability to break out these teams and actually have specific focus for them? And on the back of that, like once you've done this, like you should see like a drastic increase in whatever you put as that key metric. So yeah, I hope that was useful for everyone. If anyone wants to connect with me, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. But yeah, I'll pass it back to Owen and James.